Hello and welcome back to me talking about Pixar movies in the order of their release, because that is, of course, the order that I am watching them in. What a weird way of saying that, but I guess I'm leaving it in. So this is Toy Story 2. I have seen it before, but I have not seen it in many years. I do have very vague memories, however, of watching this one in the theatre. I would have been 4 when this came out, so I guess I was 4 the first time I saw this movie. I didn't think I had any memories of watching it in the theatre, like I wouldn't have been able to look back and be like, oh yeah, I remember going and seeing that, because obviously I was 4. But when the opening sequence was playing, where they were doing the little Star Wars spoof with Buzz Lightyear versus Zurg at the start, it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, I remember being in the movie theatre for this. In fact, it may very well have been my very first movie theatre experience. I don't know if it was. Maybe A Bug's Life was, actually, thinking about that. I think I saw that in the theatre. I'm not sure, I don't remember. Either way though, this movie was definitely an oh shit moment in that regard. I actually love the opening sequence to this movie. It's just fun. It's so fun. Like, just exploring the kind of lore of Buzz Lightyear and who he's meant to be, because that is what a lot of this movie is about in terms of Woody, of who his character is kind of meant to be. Like, you learn that he's actually this really old toy, and that he's based off of a TV series, or I guess he had a TV series, because he didn't exactly have an actor. It wasn't him as a toy is not supposed to be portraying an actor of a live-action TV series. The entire TV series was done with toys, but still, it's cool. It's like lore, Toy Story lore, and so I guess it makes sense for a B-plot of this movie to be a little bit more about Buzz Lightyear, because while the focus of this movie is not about Buzz, he still gets some fun stuff going on in there, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Firstly though, I want to mention that last week when I was talking about A Bug's Life, I noted that the movie held up fantastically. It held up better than Toy Story 1 did, and that you could show it to anyone and who didn't know anything about Pixar movies, or when this movie came out, and they would just assume it was a modern release because it looks that good. I would say Toy Story 2 also, I'm just going to assume every Pixar movie from this point forwards is going to be one of those kinds of movies, because while Toy Story 1 has aged a bit, Toy Story 2 is pristine. There's no more weird lighting, no more weird shading, no more wonky physics. The humans look better than they did in 1. I guess they could still use some work, but at worst they just look, slightly smaller than maybe they should be in certain areas. Does that make sense? They look stylized though. It's not like they look unfinished or bad. They just look stylized, where in modern Pixar movies you assume they'd look slightly different. But they look way better than the humans of Toy Story 1. And the dog as well. The dog, again, like, it doesn't look perfect. If they animated it today, it would be a better looking dog. But, like, it looks way better than the dog from Toy Story 1 did, and I don't think anyone watching it now for the first time and not knowing when it came out would pick up the fact that this was made in 1999 as opposed to recently. I liked the subversion of expectation with the dog as well, because before, in Sid's house, we saw the dog arrive as like this terrifying thing that ripped up toys and everything like that, and they definitely kind of fool you with that one in Toy Story 2. The dog comes running over, all like, oh, everyone positions, and you're like, uh-oh, they're trying to like hide because the dog's going to get them, and then you find out that they're actually playing with the dog, and the dog is part of their family, and they love the dog, and it's a lovely moment. Anyways, on to the plot of the movie.
Andy, let's go! Molly's already in her car seat.
But Mom, Woody's arm ripped.
Oh no. Maybe we can fix him on the way.
No, just leave him.
I'm sorry, honey, but toys don't last forever.
The main theme of this movie is the idea that everything ends, and on the one side we get it with Woody's arm ripping and Andy's mom telling him that toys don't last forever, and Andy being sad, and Woody doesn't get to go to cowboy camp or whatever it is that he goes to, and that kind of kickstarts the plot of the movie. But I like that it works the other way around as well, because later on we meet Jessie, who has a very sad backstory about her owner Emily growing up and not needing her anymore and then giving her away, and basically her little toy heart is broken and everything. So it kind of works two ways, toys don't last forever and kids grow up and don't need their toys anymore. And I think the main heartbreaking moment of this movie is that obviously humans don't know that toys have a element of sentience to them, so they don't know that they're hurting their feelings, and if they did know, they probably wouldn't treat them so harshly or so dismissively. Toys in the Toy Story universe are very selfless individuals. They literally exist for the well-being of their owners at great cost to themselves at certain points. And it occurs to me that the reason my parents probably love this movie is because it encourages kids to treat their toys properly, to put them away when they're done playing with them, and to not throw them around and all this kind of a thing, because then they don't have to, you know, buy new toys because the old ones keep getting broken. I don't think that's what Toy Story is all about, but I do think that that is a bonus for Toy Story. But yeah, the main conflict in this movie comes from the form of not just Woody getting kidnapped, but when he actually arrives at the place and meets his new cast of characters, the Jesse and the older dude, the Stinky Pete dude, and the very lovable donkey. he realizes that, oh, you know, I like these people too, and they're telling me all about how Andy's gonna grow up and leave me one day, and maybe I should just stay with him. But really, when it comes down to it, the choice being offered here is remain, you know, with the kid, with your owner, and like experience potential heartbreak down the line, and you know, nothing lasts forever, and you've got to worry about all that, or become a collector's item in a museum, and you get to, you know, loads of kids get to come and see you, but you don't get to move around and live or anything, but you get to live forever in kind of a form of stasis. And obviously this is obviously not in this particular way, but this kind of conflict of, oh, the pain of life or the endlessness of immortality. That's a theme that we've seen in some other literary works, and I really like it, and I think it's surprising to find it in Toy Story, but I think it does apply here. The message of this movie is very much something is beautiful because it doesn't last forever, and that's obviously a very Pixar thing, but you know, again, it's Toy Story. You're like, oh, it's just a movie about toys. I mean, like, oh, what are all these emotions I'm having? And I think it's a fantastic argument for these movies being for all ages, because, you know, I'm 26, but I'm watching this movie and I'm reminded of, you know, times when pets have died. I'm like, do I want to get new pets? Like, do I want to go through this again? And, you know, the heartbreak of, you know, 15 years later, the cat dies and, you know, I'm right back here again. But it's like, no, because it's beautiful, because it happens. The 15 years of pet love, that is, not the pet dying part, I should clarify. So anyway, when Woody is left on the top shelf there, as Andy goes to camp or whatever, he has a nightmare of Andy being like, oh, it's broken, I don't want to play with you anymore. And that's kind of become an internet meme because it's such like a relatable moment, I guess. Like, everyone's had that moment in their childhood of like, oh, I don't really want to play with this anymore. And it's also, from the perspective of a Toy Story toy, pretty horrifying. Just the callous heartbreak that it invokes. But luckily that was just a nightmare. Sorry, something I just realised I forgot to write a note about, so I want to talk about it before I forget. Video games are mentioned in this movie for the first time, and you get, what's-his-face, the dinosaur T-Rex dude, playing on a very SNES-looking controller. Because you find out that the sequence at the beginning of the movie was actually a Buzz Lightyear themed video game. And throughout this entire movie, oh my god, what's his fucking name? It's just Rex, isn't it? Throughout this entire movie, Rex has this new kind of persona of this like nerd who's constantly trying to figure out how to beat the game, and like he finds this book when they go to the shop and he's like reading all the hints about it, and he's like, this is extortion, you have to read this book to figure out how to beat the game. And as a gamer, I just absolutely loved that. But also it kind of showcases that, you know, it's only been 4 years since the first movie, but already, you know, toys are starting to kind of become less and less a thing to kids as it's kind of replaced with video games. Although that wasn't really something the movie went out of its way to talk to us about. Maybe that'll show up in Toy Story 3, I don't know. I've not seen Toy Story 3, I'm excited to see that. Also, in the first movie, or the video I made about the first movie, I said that I was surprised that Mr. Potato Head wanted a Mrs. Potato Head, because of their tumultuous relationship in Toy Story 2. They do not have a tumultuous relationship in Toy Story 2. I don't know how I misremembered that. They actually have a fairly nice relationship in Toy Story 2. She's taking care of him. She's packing stuff for him on his trip and stuff like that. It's nice. He's got a yeah whatever kind of attitude about it, but you know, he likes it. He's happy. So I wrote down here that another theme of the movie was the idea of collectability versus sentimentality, but I think that's just another level of the mortality versus immortality thing that I was talking about earlier, but that is the way that's kind of framed in this movie, so I don't think I need to talk about that again, really. But what I guess I was getting at there was the kind of the closest thing we have to a villain in this movie, which is the collector who steals Woody from the yard sale. and he's very much... At first I thought he was like a collector, and he was going to be like, oh no, they have to stay all sealed away in boxes, and they have to stay pristine, and then I can, you know, have this collection that I don't do anything with. That's the direction I thought the movie was going in, but it actually took a different direction. He just wanted to sell it to a Japanese guy, and send them overseas to Japan and stuff like that. So I guess it's not so much a this is what I think the movie is about, but more a, like, from a 2021 perspective, I was more expecting the movie to go down this route instead of the commercial route. I wonder if they ever do take on that issue in Toy Story 3 and 4 of people being like, I collect toys, but I don't take them out and play with them because I'm an adult and I just want them as collector pieces. But the funny thing is, I think if they do that, it can't be as a bad thing necessarily, right? Because I don't think that is a bad thing necessarily. Obviously, you shouldn't buy all the toys that kids are gonna want to play with. You shouldn't, like, buy them up or whatever. But I think there's a difference between collecting toys and just picking them up to sell them on. I don't know. Real life toys aren't sentient, so you don't really have a moral quandary of stealing a toy from its loving family and selling it to Japan where it can't get back to them. I mean, you do have a moral quandary of stealing is wrong, don't steal, but I think that's a given. Oh my god, are there Funko Pops in Toy Story 4? I bet there are fucking Funko Pops in Toy Story 4. You know what, I'm gonna Google it right now. I'm gonna fucking Google it right now. Are there Funko Pops in Toy Story 4? Oh, Funko Pops of Toy Story. Oh my god, there is a Funko Pop of Woody and it is a nightmare fuel. Listen, I like a good Funko, don't get me wrong, but you can't Funko an already stylized toy. It's... oh no, don't do it. Anyway, back to the movie. One thing I noticed about this movie, and it's probably true of Bug's Life and Toy Story 1 before it as well, I just didn't really think about it until this movie, is the sound design. And by that I don't just mean the soundtrack, I mean the amount of Foley work that must go into creating a movie like this. I noticed it in the scene where the toy cleanup dude was coming in to basically clean up Woody, and he had this entire set of instruments that he plopped down, and he was opening drawers and he was unwinding things, and he was getting these little things, and there were so many little sound quirks in there, which must have taken... I mean, I guess they could have just bought that little cleaning set in real life and filmed all of the noises it makes, but the attention to detail on that stuff is so good, and I think it's the kind of thing you wouldn't necessarily notice missing, like, specifically from a lower budget movie, but the fact that it's not there would kind of make it missing in a way that while you wouldn't notice it specifically, it wouldn't feel as good, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you know what I mean, I'm just articulating this terribly. So when the toys who are mounting a rescue mission enter the toy shop, and Buzz finds that aisle full of Buzz Lightyears, and he accidentally activates one of the Buzz Lightyears, which has a new belt on him, which is very convenient for us viewers who want to differentiate the two. That leads into a fight sequence, which is basically Buzz Lightyear of Toy Story 2 versus Buzz Lightyear of Toy Story 1, because the newly activated Buzz Lightyear doesn't know anything that our Buzz Lightyear knows, and thinks that he's on a mission, and, you know, come in, Star Control, and all of this thing. All of this kind of a thing. And it's a genius. I love it so much. It's such a fun way to kind of not only show Buzz Lightyear's character progression, but also just to kind of, like, have an interesting interaction between past and future self. I love how Buzz was just like, oh geez, was I really this naive? I think that's what he says anyway, and I just love how it made me realise how much more likeable the Buzz Lightyear of Toy Story 2 is versus the Buzz Lightyear of Toy Story 1. Okay, that was fun, wasn't it? Shall we get sad? Let's get sad. Everyone prepare for the sad audio clip. It's coming.
You never forget kids like Emily or Andy, but they forget you.
Jesse, I didn't know.
Just go.
That is some damn good acting, first of all. But yeah, Jessie's backstory, where we learn about Emily, I already mentioned it earlier, how she grew up and how she started obviously not caring that much about Jessie, and obviously not knowing that the toys in the Toy Story universe are sentient, so obviously not knowing that she would be breaking her heart. I'm sure Emily's a nice person. I'm sure she wouldn't just, you know, throw a friend by the side of a road and ditch them and drive away, but given the nature of relationships between humans and toys in this universe, it was bound to happen. And this movie really does do a deep dive on what's bound to happen as kids grow up and don't want their toys anymore. And I think maybe this movie was made because of that, because people probably saw Toy Story 1 and went, well, what happens when they grow up and they don't want the toys anymore? That's going to be a bit sad, isn't it? And they were like, yes, it is. Let's do a movie about it. And the Prospector very much weaponizes her grief to convince Woody to stay with him as like a fear tactic. Like, this is going to happen to you and Andy. Why not just cut him loose now and stay with us and live forever, in terms of, you know, living in a glass case and having loads of kids see you and be happy and playing with you. Well, not even playing with you, but just seeing you and be like, wow, look at that toy. We've already been over that. But you can see how I'm viewing this movie at this point and how it all comes together. I think it's very, very, very well done. I think this movie is better than Toy Story 1, but it wouldn't be as great without the first movie. How great is it that Buzz Lightyear, out of all of the characters, is the one who corners Woody and tells him,
Woody, you're not a collector's item. You're a child's plaything. You are a toy!
For how much longer? One more rip and Eddie's done with me. And what do I do then, Buzz, huh? You tell me.
Somewhere in that pat of stuffing is a toy who taught me that life's only worth living if you're being loved by a kid.
Oh, it's such a perfect culmination of their relationship. Okay, so before we wrap up here, I want to talk about a couple of things that stood out to me, which are going to be very personal to me in this movie, which I think are really fun. Because obviously last time I saw this movie is when I was a kid. So I have a memory of me trying to tickle someone and telling them, I'm torturing you, and my dad being like, Christian, where did you learn that word? And being very angry that his like 5-6-year-old kid was pretending to torture someone, because of course that's quite an adult word to be using and thing to be doing. And it turns out I got it from none other than Toy Story 2, when when they're trying to break into the area where Woody is and he's having fun with Jesse and the donkey. What's his name again? I'm sorry. He's called Bullseye and he is a horse. I'm not an equine expert. But yeah, when they're holding him down and tickling them, Rex is watching going, oh my god, they're torturing him! Oh, I can't look. And it's really funny, but it was lost on my kid brain apparently, because I was like, oh, that just must mean what tickling is. It's torturing. Whoops. The other thing I want to mention is that whenever I talk about the I am your father moment in Star Wars, I always deliver it, I am your father. Where in the actual movie, I was surprised to learn many years ago at this point that the actual delivery is, I am your father. The way it's delivered in this movie...
No, Buzz. I am your father.
I think it actually makes a damn sight more sense, but it also means it's possible that I would have seen this before I ever saw the original Star Wars movies. So yeah, that's just a fun bit of personal trivia. It's really fun that watching this movie I kind of unlocked memories of my past, which I wouldn't have been able to call up at will, but watching this triggered those memories of like, oh fuck, I remember this, I remember that this led to that. It's a really good reason to rewatch your old childhood movies, assuming of course that you are privileged enough to have good childhood memories. I'm not going to assume that of everyone, of course. One last thing I would like to mention is the fact that during the credits they played a bunch of bloopers, and of course these are fake bloopers because they would have to animate them all, and they're not just animated versions of bloopers that happened in the audio booth, they're visual gags, and they were just so fun to watch, and there were so many of them, and it really felt like a flex on Pixar's end of like, hey, we just animated this entire movie, here's some more of it. It was really good. I wonder why they did it as well. Like maybe they had all the visuals done and everything, and they were waiting on some audio stuff to be finalized. So they're like, hey, while we wait, let's use some existing assets to animate some dumb outtakes or something. But it was really nice. I liked it a lot. Anyway, that was Toy Story 2. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought about my thoughts, and then I'll let you know what I thought about your thoughts about my thoughts, and then maybe you can let me know what you thought about my thoughts about your thoughts about my thoughts, and then maybe I'll let you know what I thought about your thoughts about my thoughts about your thoughts about my... Okay, that's enough of that. See you next week. Addendum, maybe not next week. I've got a very busy week ahead of me, so I'm not sure if I'm going to find a time to make another one of these within that time, but maybe, I don't know, maybe hit that subscribe button if you want to know when it happens. Okay, that's enough. For real. Goodbye.